Hello, everybody, and welcome to Vocabulary Unit 10. These are vocabulary terms that will be coming from the Renaissance period and from our experience with the Enlightenment period, Voltaire's Candide. So both areas will be represented. Okay, so here we go. Courtliness. You can see the root word court right there. So anything that is marked by courtliness is marked by politeness and formal behavior. It means that you have a good sense of decorum. Okay, next term is heir. We definitely know that an heir is someone who will receive money or an inheritance upon another person's death. They could receive a position, like Banquo's heirs, for example. Sorry about that. Okay, let's go back to writing. So a person who will receive money or a position or inheritance or a title upon someone's death. So remember the worry and the anguish that Macbeth suffered when he discovers that Banquo's heirs are going to be king. This will occur when someone else passes away. Remember, Duncan names Prince of Cumberland Malcolm. Malcolm will be his successor. Okay, a joust is a medieval or Renaissance way of fighting. It's very often a tournament kind of setting. Sometimes it was just done for fun. So it is to fight with a lance. Remember a lance? We saw that we saw a bleeding lance in Roland. But to fight with a lance while on horseback is what we would call a joust. And it was an opportunity for certain people, especially knights of the Round Table, to show off their prowess. So I'm just going to jump down to prowess. Prowess is great ability or skill. Most of our heroes will exude great prowess. Obviously, we remember that with Achilles when Hecuba is standing at the city wall, and so is her husband Priam, and they're yelling at their son Hector to come inside because Achilles shows so much prowess. He's described as a blazing star. Presumption is the act of believing something without any proof. To presume, right? The act of believing something is true without any proof is presumption. So you think about in our country, in the system of law, people are presumed innocent until proven guilty. Okay, so it's the act of believing that someone is innocent before you can say that they are responsible for a crime. And prowess and renown kind of work together because in order to achieve renown, this is the state of being famous. We can use this as a noun. And we can also conjugate it as a verb and say that he was renowned for doing something, or an adjective, I guess I should say. He was renowned, or let's say famous, for doing something. So you can search for renown, or you could be a renowned fighter, for example. You can even say that a certain region or certain land is renowned for its winemaking, for example. Okay, moving right along. To be confounded is actually two things. Now, most of us know it as to confuse or to surprise. For example, he was confounded, or he confounded doctors by recovering from his illness. Right? They were so confused, it was confounding, right? But you can also use confounded to express anger. I'm confounded by those meddlesome kids, those nuisances, right? used to express some form of anger. An old crone is an old, sort of unpleasant, nasty, ugly woman. If you read The Wife of Bath's Tale, you might have read about the crone in there who sends the young knight on the journey to find out what it is that women most desire. Okay, so an unpleasant, ugly old woman is called a crone. Disdain is also a noun. It's the feeling of not liking someone. To show disdain is to show scorn, to look down on them or on something. Let's use the word scorn. That's a good synonym, and it's a nice, quick synonym for that. His disdain for Hector was readily apparent. Achilles' disdain for Hector. I think we all know what ruminate means. If you sit and ruminate over something, it means you're going to think it over carefully. To think carefully and for a long period over something. To really sort of chew it over. That's actually where it comes from, to chew the cud. The rumen is the throat or the gullet. And, some animals will be able to sort of bring up their food from their stomach to chew it again. So it's like this idea of like really chewing on something, really pondering it. Like Hector when he's outside the city gates and he starts to think, well, should I run inside? Should I not run inside? Should I stay out here? Should I try to make a truce? Should I offer him Helen as a bargain? Now, most of us know that a sheaf or sheaves are objects that are held or tied together. Objects that are held or tied together. For example, you might talk about a sheaf of paper that's tied together, or sheaves of corn stalks. But in our purpose, because this appears in one of Petrarch's sonnets, and he talks about the sheaf and the shaft, he's actually referring to a kind of arrow. So I'm going to put the second definition because that's how you're going to see it in the sonnet. A sheaf is a kind of arrow. And he will be talking about how love was this sheaf that, was able to penetrate his soul. And he'll actually continue using those sort of trapping words when he uses the word snare to show how aggressive love can be. A snare is a trap for catching small animals. And he said he walks into love's snare. And then finally, we do have some terms here from Candide. When all is consternation in the great kingdom of Westphalia, he's basically telling us that all these are feelings of anxiety or dismay. Everything was topsy-turvy when Candide got caught trying to kiss Cunegonde. It's typically at something that's unexpected. A cudgel is a weapon. It's a short, thick stick of wood. Mostly it's stick of wood, but it's used as a weapon, as you will see in the piece. A short, thick stick, often made of wood, but not always. Disembowel. Oh, this was a fun way of taking care of your enemies or of prosecuting criminals. To disembowel is essentially to take out, your bowels. So to cut open and remove the internal parts of something is to disembowel. It was an awful way of executing people back in the old days. Your disposition is your demeanor. He had a sunny disposition, you might say. This is a person's inherent qualities of mind and character. He had a dour disposition. Think of the Reeve in the Canterbury Tales. He was choleric. right? So he was a nasty fellow. To falter is to lose strength, to hesitate, to lose momentum. You're kind of struggling when you falter. To move falteringly is to move hesitantly. To fetter, as we know from the great short story of the Cask of Amontillado, is to chain, to bind, to restrain. Usually we talk about it with, handcuffs or something, or even with Fortunato, he's fettered to the wall with those manacles, with those chains. Prodigious is huge or remarkably great in size. He was known for his prodigious research, his abundant research, right? And quartering comes up in Candide in terms of heritage. I'm going to put that in parentheses because the actual definition of quartering is the representation of several coats of arms on someone's, denoting someone's lineage. The representation of several coats of arms on one shield. So if you talk about someone's quarterings, you want to go back in time and find out what is their noble background, what is their heritage, what is their lineage. And of course, Candide will use this, or Voltaire will use for a sarcastic means. To be rapacious is to be greedy, to be hungry for something. So greedy, a yearning, covetousness. Think about the three rioters in The Partner's Tale. They're known for their greed, their rapaciousness. Or Tom Walker and his wife. A valet is usually, at least in this particular instance, it's a male servant for a nobleman. Very wealthy people might have a valet. I mean, we hear valet in terms of valet parking, but traditionally it's a male servant who takes care of the lord or the master of the castle. And vivacity, viva, you know that the word life is in there. So the state of being full of life is vivacity. To be vivacious. In other words, you're not going to be an energy vampire, right? If you're known for your vivacity. It's lively. You're being lively in temperament, in your demeanor. Oops. Let me just say temperament. Your disposition is full of life. Okay, that takes care of the terms for this unit. And thank you so much for tuning in.